motion. Pitch. Didn't get it. They stuffed him. Formation in the Apple Cup takes a knee. The clock will do the rest.
What is going on Coug Nation? Welcome back to another live edition of the Couch GM and Coug Fan podcast. Today we're going to talk about, there's some WSU updates at the end, the updated fiscal budget that we'll get into, but we're going to talk about some comments from Kirby Smart this past week, the head coach of Georgia football and potential clawbacks. We're going to talk about, is UNLV not heading to the Pac-12? Are they committed to the Mountain West? And then, as I mentioned, towards the end, we'll get into the updated WSU fiscal numbers for this upcoming year. But first off, this podcast is sponsored, as I mentioned, by CougFan.com. Make sure to check out CougFan.com, subscribe to their premium membership for all things Cougar athletics. They are our go-to for all things WSU. Make sure to check them out. And if you're pumping iron like myself, Dylan and Jackson, you definitely need to recover properly with some protein, some creatine. Check out blacklabelsupplements.com. Couch GM gets you 15% off your order. And if you or someone you know is thinking of buying, selling, or refinancing on the West Coast, make sure to reach out to myself, Connor Webb. I'd be happy to assist you with your mortgage financing. If you're also doing that in a sunny state, check out Dylan. You could hit him up for your solar. And if you're not already, go join the 1890 Club, the Cougar Collective. Help, contribute to the cause and help keep the athletes in Pullman. So with that, let's get into today's episode.
I've got one more plug. I want to shout out Pullman Vintage Market for this beautiful vintage 1998 Rose Bowl shirt between Michigan and Wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
We're still waiting for that second on the clock to be added, but check them out. They're going to have pop-ups throughout the year. Tyler runs Pullman Vintage Market. Wanted to shout him out for hooking it up. So here's kind of what their game plan is for bringing out vintage drop pop-ups over the season. So check them out on Instagram.
And speaking of hooking them up, Jackson was in Mexico this past weekend. He was also hooking some stuff up. Jackson, how was your trip?
It was fantastic.
What do we have on the hook here?
Anyone need some yellowtail tuna? Because I got a whole lot of it. We're selling yellowfish or yellowtail tuna like hotcakes over here. That beast is a 30-pounder right there. Actually, we did catch a shark, about 100-ish pound thresher shark that unfortunately, once we got it up to the water level, it's swimming and thrashing around. I fully thought we were bringing this thing on. I thought we were going to come back into the marina, heroes welcome, with a 100-pound shark over our head. And then, after 40 minutes of reeling this thing in, our guide was like, yeah, no, we can't actually bring this thing in the boat. That would be a serious health hazard. So yeah, had to cut it loose as soon as we got it. Unfortunate.
Yeah, PETA, please do not watch this show today.
Let's go. Whoever that is commenting has the same hockey jersey. We're everywhere. Us WSU hockey supporters.
Shout out the WSU Hockey Club. They are still selling those jerseys if you want to take a look at them.
Now, getting right into it, the Kirby Smart had some comments this week talking about, this is a tweet from Ross Dellinger, and there's a full article that you can check out, but essentially, uncertainty lingers about college sports' new enforcement entity. The top quote there is, Kirby Smart tells Yahoo Sports that collectives are striking deals with high school recruits to keep and gain their commitments, paying them as much as $20,000 a month in this unregulated market. If they decommit, they are being asked to return the compensation, Kirby Smart says. As we know, universities are trying to get the players to commit, and apparently they're starting to pay them even when they're still in high school just to keep them committed. And by the time you feed them a certain amount of money, now they're on the hook potentially for that money if they decide to decommit. So it's like they're trying to find any way that they can. This is completely unregulated, so people are just taking advantage of people left and right.
Yeah. Price of the bricks going up, not once upon a time, 20K was about half of what you needed to secure you the services of a first overall selection in the NFL draft. Now 20K gets you a month of commitment from a high
It's a
school
long
athlete.
snapper.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the video of the defensive end for the University of Oregon, like jumping in the pool with Dan Lanning, and then now he ends up decommitted
Yes.
like 3 weeks later?
Well, I think that's obviously like the next question is who's going to be the first kid to be like, thank you for your money. Oh, and by the way, I'm not giving it back. I'm taking this. And if you want to come and sue me, do it. But, you know, because I know at least of
Oregon
one.
State dealt with that.
We know of one recorded case with the Madden. I am Lava. Don't really know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not even going to really try. But Arkansas is trying to sue him. They paid him upwards of $400,000, and guess what? They're only searching for half of it back. They're only seeking $200K in their lawsuit of $400,000 paid, and they're not even sure if they're going to get it back. Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. Neither of you guys are lawyers. I wasn't reading, the filings of this case, but there are people who are writing about it who are suggesting that it is not a guarantee that Arkansas is even going to reclaim half of what they paid Madden. So I think it's really interesting. Like, obviously WSU has clauses in their contracts for NIL that they're giving out that's, seeks to reclaim the money if someone transfers or leaves or doesn't honor the NIL commitment. But I think one of the things that I was reading is what makes it interesting from a legal perspective of trying to reclaim that money is NIL deals are not predicated on performance. They're not performance-based contracts. They're marketing-based contracts. So it makes it harder to define, did you hit these marks? Like, did you actually earn the money that we paid you? If it were, performance-based, obviously they hadn't performed at all. You could reclaim that money. But with it being marketing, I think it's a little bit more vague. And I don't know. I mean, that would be a fascinating conversation to have with the Cougar Collective. Is like, obviously you write it in the contract. You feel like it's legally valid, but how worried are you if someone just says, "Oh, I'm just going to wander off with the $10K you paid me"?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah.
You know what? Answer that. I think you were going.
Well, I was going to say to tease a conversation that we're going to be having next week. We're actually going to be having on Tim Brandel from the Cougar Collective next week for an extended interview. We had him on last year, so we're going to get his thoughts on all the updates since we had him on this last time and get his thoughts on some of this. But like for this example, Arkansas, how much in legal fees are they going to be paying just to try to get half of their money back? Are they going to spend $200K in legal fees with lawyers and all that stuff trying to get back $200K? It just makes it completely sloppy. And like this phrase the relationships in so many ways. And talking about the marketing thing, like that defensive end for Oregon, technically he was helping Oregon with marketing, right? So like whatever money he made by jumping in a pool with the head coach,
Right.
He got them the exposure that they were looking for. So he made his money.
And you'd imagine his attorney will go around and use that in a court of law and be like, look,
here's how many views
his
this
end of the
got.
bargain. Yeah. Marketing.
Yeah.
Boom. Right here. So it does make you a little bit nervous about, like,
I do remember,
obviously WSU has limited resources. Like you certainly can't afford legal fees on top of your NIL budget,
And that's also why they pay them out on a monthly basis. It's
Monthly.
not like a lump sum 500K. Here you go. It's like you're making 500K. Okay, that's 45,000 a month, whatever that you're getting paid out. So that when they do cut ties, if they decide to leave, they aren't paid that entire amount up front. It's the monthly installments.
and when we had Tim on, I think a couple months ago, we were kind of talking about some of the things that have propped up in the NIL landscape since NIL started. And, the reason he brought up, hey, we're paying these guys monthly is because, hey, if they do go on to take off, we're not saying this happened. We've heard of this happening at a school that's in the Pac-12 that's not Washington State, getting burnt in the dust,
right?
Losing 3-figure money in NIL to a running back who ended up going to Miami. I don't know who that is.
Well, and wouldn't you say that is a bit of an admission that this is something we're concerned about is recruits running off with our money. How confident are we of these clawback clauses in their contracts if these are the measures we're taking to make sure kids aren't running off with WSU's NIL money? It doesn't it doesn't give you a whole lot of reason to be like confident about the system. And obviously it's been written about ad nauseum about how unsustainable the NIL landscape is right now. But
and it's one.
Go ahead, Connor.
It's one thing to pay their current college athletes to stay at the university, but kind of going back to Kirby Smart's comments, this is going to high school recruits now that are currently like heading into their senior year of high school potentially, that have already committed to university. Universities are paying these guys that are still in high school up to $20,000 a month to try to keep them committed to their university. So, we thought it was bad when we were seeing like the kids in the USC driving their Lambo on campus. Now there's going to be high schoolers pulling up with like Mercedes Benzes that are being paid for by their college that they committed to. It's just, it goes so deep and it could get sloppy, especially they're not even 18 years old yet, potentially.
Well, also, I think what can be sort of paradoxical about this is that it does feel like the professionalization of college sports has negatively impacted WSU significantly. Obviously the implosion of the Pac-12, sort of relegation to group of 6 status. But even with all of that being said, I do think the best way forward for WSU and schools like WSU is to continue the pursuit of professionalization of college sports, because I think, and we've talked about this many times on the show, the more professionalized it gets, the more that players are signed to actual contracts by the university. I think it's easier to be able to argue in a court of law that these clawback clauses are valid, because then I think you can make them performance based. Again, don't know, not a lawyer, but I would believe that would be the case. And you can actually start seeking some money in the transfer portal when someone leaves, to try and buyout clauses and stuff like that. So you can actually start getting compensated for some of the kids that are moving on. But again, I think the point is that keeping this thing moving forward at a quicker pace, so that universities, that these are it's fully professionalized, is actually in the better interest of WSU than returning back to the way of old.
Well, and one other thing too is, like, when you take a look at this NIL landscape, I mean, it's every sport. And when you've got an oil tycoon at Texas Tech with just buku bucks throwing $1 million to the best softball pitcher in the nation, Najari Kennedy, she pitched at Stanford beforehand. She's making $1 million, dude. Like, we gave John Mateer $1.2 million. We're like, look at us, dude. Right. We got a 7-figure offer to our quarterback. And you've got oil tycoons over here just doing whatever they want with monopoly money. And look at Texas Tech. They go from being an under 500 team. Kennedy pretty much in softball, no stress on their arms. She can throw every pitch. She pitched every pitch in the College World Series. They did lose game 1 to Texas. Game 2's today in that final. But, like, how do you not, like, feel screwed as a Wazoo fan, or, someone that's in our same stratosphere for NIL funding?
I think screwed is probably the wrong term. I think jealous is probably the more appropriate term, because at face value, this is what we love about sports. We love a Steve Cohn who comes into the Mets and says, guys, it is my civic duty to spend this amount of money to make this ball club relevant and make them good. We love when there's a wealthy owner who views, it can be booster, owner, whatever you want it to be, who comes in, who views these teams as their shiny toy and spends millions of dollars on it. We love that. We don't love it when all the other owners are doing it and our owners, boosters, are not. And unfortunately, we just don't have that kind of whale donor that is so invested and so committed to seeing WSU athletics succeed that they're willing to, plant millions of dollars on the table. But at face value, I think as sports fans, we want to see more of that, of some, oil tycoon just coming in and saying, yeah, I want to see this team succeed, and I'm willing to spend top dollar to make it happen.
Or maybe an Amazon tycoon that could come to the Seattle area and start spending in some sports. Because that's speaking right to my heart and to all the Pacific Northwest sports fans, like the Mariners ownership. It's like we're just jealous of every other team because they're actually spending money. Like we
totally
wish that our owner was doing what everyone else is doing, but the PNW sports were always undervalued, underappreciated, underfunded.
It's the same thing being a Nats fan, dude. I've watched Bryce Harper go to a division rival for an extra $30 million. Juan Soto. I mean, we can't re-sign any of our young guys. And I'm looking at James Wood like, this guy's literally from Maryland. How is he not signed to a 10?
You got to get him on a Julio contract ASAP.
So yeah, I mean, we're all feeling that.
The haves and have-nots of sports. It's the life.
So, like we mentioned, 1890 Club, contribute what you can until a Jeff Bezos or someone comes in and starts, contributing the money, or, hopefully a big brand, former WSU grad, can blow up and start.
I hear Melinda Gates is donating lots of money. Maybe
we can blackmail one of these.
Sign ourselves up as Make-A-Wish kids or something. I don't know.
Strike that from the record for Dylan. But yeah, we'll have to see kind of where things head. But really interesting with that article. The next topic, this got some opinions going, was this tweet from TBM_JY. They state UNLV is committed to the Mountain West. The outcome of the mediation is not an issue for UNLV. Someone said on their pod that several UNLV folks have said that UNLV is fully committed to the Mountain West. That's supposed to be MWC. This is not surprising to TBM. What are your guys' thoughts? I mean, I guess first off, what was the mediation that they're referencing, if you know? And is UNLV really committed to the Mountain West, or are they just waiting to see what Pac-12's final offer might be?
Mediation's over the exit fees, and then on top of the exit fees is the poaching fees that the Mountain West Conference was trying to add on top of the exit fees. So the mediation is for these two to figure out, okay, Pac-12, can we lower the poaching fees? What are we going to pay for the exit fees? I mean, I guess it's just trying to save as much money in that war chest that you have, that you won with Oregon State after the Traitors 10 left. But Jackson, you had a pretty, interesting thought. When you said
I just think
they're in it till they're not in it.
Right. I think UNLV, what they are truly committed to is the best path forward for UNLV. If that is with the Mountain West, then they are fully committed to the Mountain West. If that is with the Pac-12, they will be fully committed to the Mountain West until they receive an offer that is better. And then they're not committed to the Mountain West. I mean, it's the exact same as University of Washington, Oregon, and all the departing Pac-12 schools who, weren't USC and UCLA. They were fully committed until they weren't, and then they bounced. And that's kind of the name of the game. Furthermore, I don't see any, when you're at the negotiating table for your UNLV, what good does it do for you to say, yeah, we're really interested in joining the Pac-12? I mean, they're negotiating for more money right now. It doesn't help you to say, oh, we'd really love to join you guys. That tells the Pac-12 that you can try and lowball them.
And that's just negotiations. It's like with GMs in baseball. They're like, I love that prospect. They're our guy. Like, I'm never going to move him. Like, we love him so much, just so that you're not going to say, yeah, we're open to trading this guy. It's like you're trying to keep the value as high as possible for that player. So you're going to say, try to add as
Gary
much
Ford.
to it. Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, and maybe they actually are your guy until they're not, until something comes along that's better and that changes the direction that the franchise or the program is moving. So I don't think it's any different from UNLV. I have no doubt that, what Jason was reporting is true, that there are UNLV officials that are saying we are committed to the Mountain West. I just don't believe that actually carries very much weight. I think UNLV would love to be a part of the Pac-12 if it means they're getting more money annually from the media rights deal than they are for the Mountain West.
And that's a big part of it is the media rights deal. And we've been hearing that it's going to be coming. And now hearing from the SDSU AD again, that we might be 5 to 6, 7 weeks out from a media deal being announced. So once that media deal comes to light, then there might be some clarity on how much funding is going to be available to bring in some of these other universities. And then UNLV is on board.
Yeah. But I also do think that maybe, and again, we're just trying to read tea leaves. We don't actually know anything. But if UNLV is holding out this long, then maybe there is some truth that the Pac-12 media rights deal is not as high. Maybe it is far closer to what the Mountain West is receiving. That doesn't seem unreasonable if they're still holding out. And for them, dollars and cents wise, it's not, there isn't a big fissure between the two conferences that they're still holding out. So I don't know, maybe it's not 10 million. Maybe it is closer to 8, 7,
We'll keep you posted on that as more news comes out. Dylan, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, and I guess the one thing too is like, is there any tea leaves to read with Utah Valley deciding, hey, we're going to go from the WAC to the Big West and not even think about the Mountain West Conference? I mean, Utah Valley's had a decent basketball program for the last 5 to 10 years. Mark Madsen really turned them around before getting to California. So, like, I don't know if there's any tea leaves to read on that, but it's just also funny to see, okay, we're now like 3 or 4 years into this. When Oklahoma and Texas decided to go to the SEC, the layering of how this affects everything. Now we're seeing it finally affect the WAC and then the Big West. I mean, realignment just continues to churn out, new location schools.
Was there ever an offer on the table from the Mountain West for Utah Valley? I don't know. That was something that just sort of like came across my timeline when it happened, when they announced they were joining I'm sorry, which conference? The Big West? Is that what it is?
The Big West. Yeah, they're going from the WAC to the Big West.
So, I mean, I don't even know if the Mountain West were interested in Utah Valley. I would certainly say the Mountain West is still a more prestigious conference than the Big West. I don't think that's a leap to say that, but I don't know.
SDSU,
it's interesting to consider, though.
SDSU Aztec Mike V. We only need Las Vegas, not UNLV in the Pac-12. The new Pac-12 will play Pac-12 basketball tournament every year at T-Mobile like they did with the previous Pac-12. I mean, you hope so. I disagree. I
do too.
You want Texas State or do you want UNLV? I want UNLV 100 times out of 100, or UTSA or all these other schools. I do get where a lot of SDSU fans are coming from, because UNLV has just been borderline garbage in football and basketball all these years. Their last great basketball teams, I want to say, were during the Kawhi Leonard and Billy White years in 2010 to 2012. So I do think that they are, I'm not going to, for lack of a better term, sleeping giant. I mean, I'm not going to say they're a giant, but I mean, when you have the ability to use the Raiders facilities for home games for football, you bring in Dan Mullen. I mean, again, I just don't understand. You bring in Dan Mullen and you're paying him upwards of $3 million per year. It just doesn't make sense to have him play in the Mountain West Conference. I guess it would make sense from the standpoint of, okay, now we're the belle of the ball in this conference, and it should be ours to take each year. But I disagree with that. UNLV would be a perfect fit. We need one more team. It keeps everything localized and keeps everything on the West Coast.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the only reason it does make sense for UNLV with Dan Mullen and all of where is this money coming from? First of all, it's Las Vegas. There's plenty of money in Las Vegas. Where it's coming from, great question. I don't know. But there's no shortage of money in Las Vegas. So it doesn't totally surprise me that they've found a way to pay Dan Mullen. But with that being said, I agree. I don't understand why people are saying we don't need UNLV. No, certainly we don't need UNLV. We don't, we need only one school, but we want UNLV. Can we be honest with ourselves and say UNLV having Las Vegas, we've said it a million times here. I don't need to go into with that great a detail, but having UNLV gives you Las Vegas in the footprint. And I don't think it is a foregone conclusion that you're just doing all the tournaments in Las Vegas, that was just suggested. I think having UNLV there in the conference helps out, greases those wheels a good bit.
Yeah, not just playing games at Las Vegas. Like, yeah, you need that university and that fan base to get behind you.
Normalize saying we want UNLV in the Pac-12. I don't understand why that's such a bad thing to say.
Also, when I take a look at UNLV's schedule this season, it's like you've got a brand new football coach in Dan Mullen, who's coached at Mississippi State, Florida. They couldn't even get selected for Fox's game that weekend. Like, they can't even. They're still on CBS network for a UCLA UNLV game. Like, you think that would be a nationally televised game. So, like, UNLV fans, read the tea leaves right there. You can't even get the big game on Fox on your biggest game of the season.
And this is a good point right here. Max states that if you're a college football playoff voter, there's no way you can put a UNLV team in the Mountain West Conference over Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State, and the new Pac-12 with a similar record. So UNLV, they want to be in a bigger conference. They want a bigger national spotlight. They want a better chance of making the playoff, just like everyone else.
I'd push back on that one, though. You
don't agree?
Similar record, like maybe, but that's assuming both of these, WSU, OSU, or Boise State, or someone from the new Pac-12 is a 10 or 11 win team. Again, assuming you're getting that auto bid for the group of 6. I don't know. We are just taking for granted that the Pac-12 is going to be considered as a more prestigious conference. And I can understand why we say that, why we think that, but we have not seen that manifest itself. Like, again, the only thing that, differentiates conferences is the amount of money you receive in a media rights deal. That's it. So if the Pac-12 is only getting, 7, 8, 9 million a year for their schools, and the Mountain West is getting 5, 6, 7, that's not a very big difference. So I would push back a little bit against that. Not saying I don't want UNLV in the Pac-12. Obviously I do. But again, I think voters who traditionally kind of gloss over the West Coast as it is, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of differentiation for them between the Mountain West and the new Pac-12.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it as that progresses. Hopefully there's information on a media rights deal here in the next few weeks. And then moving to go for it.
I'm uploading a banner real quick, and it's just pivoting off of your point of, is the Pac-12 going to be that G5 conference that typically gets automatic bid? And you can see here last 4 seasons, in terms of some analytics that the Pac-12 conference posted about a week ago, and it shows you, like, hey, like, the Pac-12 is going to be that number 5 conference. And that's the next aspect, is like, okay, what's the CFP voting on? Is it going to be the 5 conference winners and 11 auto bids, or is it going to be something different? And I think, Kook Fan came out with an article recently, I think yesterday or this morning, on it, stating that 5 plus 11 model favors us. I mean, who's to say one year, let's say Boise State runs the table, WSU loses to Boise State, but they run the table. Maybe there's an outside shot that you can get to Pac-12 schools in once every blue moon. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Yeah. It's not likely, but we did see it once in the 4-team era, that one year that Cincinnati ended up making it when they were still in the AAC. But I mean, the problem with that, getting 2 Pac-12 schools, is that means they're going to be playing each other. Like, you're going to have a Boise State. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say it's Boise State and WSU. Could be anyone, but for the sake of argument, okay, that means you have a regular season matchup. That means someone is losing that, someone's winning that. And then presumably they're winning out, because you got to be at 10 or 11 wins to even be considered. So that means you have a Pac-12 championship game with both of these schools, and then someone's losing that out. I find it tremendously difficult
to be a loser of the Pac-12 championship game and still get an at-large bid in the 5+11 model. But maybe, yeah.
Hey, and also, like, we pretty much almost saw this exact same thing happen this year with the Mountain West Conference last season with UNLV and Boise State. So they played that one game at UNLV in like October. Boise won. And then they ended up meeting back in the Mountain West Conference championship. Right. UNLV, I think, was at 2 losses at that time. And they had a good strength of schedule. Like, their only non-conference loss was a 3-point loss at home to Syracuse. And we saw what Syracuse ended up doing at the end of the year. So I guess there's some credence there, because there's people, that discourse with the Mountain West Conference Championship is, okay, if Boise State loses, let's say they lose by 1 or 2, and it's a tough game. Do they still get in with UNLV getting the automatic bid? But that never happened. They obviously took care of business.
Right. And I remember the conversation at the time being, if Boise State loses, is it Army that gets the final spot?
Yeah.
So again, the idea of 2 group of 5 teams from the same conference getting chosen for the CFP feels incredibly slim. But, as you said, crazy things could happen if scheduling works out. But I'll say this, at least for this year,
a lot has to go right. A
lot has to go right. You have to have a particularly good schedule. I don't look at anyone's schedule in the Pac-12 or at least Oregon State and WSU. I don't look at their schedules and feel like this is good enough that, like, if you drop one of these, there could be multiple teams from the conference. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll keep everyone posted as we hear more on that. We should hear some updates in the near future. And then pivoting to the last topic on this episode, it's the WSU athletic budget. There was an article that came out this morning by QFan.com. Make sure to check out the full article for the full breakdown of the numbers and exactly what that looks like. But the budget for the next fiscal year, which starts on July 1st, is going to be unchanged from this prior year, which is $74 million. As we know, 2 years ago, it decreased $11 million from $85 million down to the 74. That led to, of course, the coaching change and coaching staff leaving. So here's just a few details of some of the changes. $37.4 million in distribution from the Pac-12, which is virtually the same as the $37.7 from the year before. $6 million in ticket sales is up from $5.4 the prior year. $9.5 million in donations, which is up from $8 million the year before. So up $1.5 million in donations the past year. $10.4 million in debt service on facilities is down from 11.1. $900K for student and athlete meals, up from $600K. And you could check out the article for the full details. So I guess any takeaways from this news?
I guess the one being what was mentioned in the first paragraph being, do you interpret this as a victory in that sort of the budget has been stabilized, or do you look at this as a resignation of sort of the Board of Regents not properly valuing at Cougar athletics? I mean, I'm kind of
the latter.
I don't know. I mean, if you're, I don't know.
Continuing to operate their budget like they did it at the Pac-12 level.
I mean, that's a lovely thought, right? To continue to operate at that budget.
But how long can you?
Yeah. How long can you? Is it financially responsible to do that?
Well, the state of Oregon's also giving them $10 million a year. We're not getting that. We're not getting any sort of funding from the state of Washington. I don't know how that starts, how that happens, but at least Oregon State's getting $10 million.
I mean, sure. And again, where all the pots of money are coming from, that, how Oregon State gets more and how they're able to still fund at the same level, I don't know. But I do know that, at least I feel that the people running WSU are smart people, that they would not approve a budget that they don't feel that they could actually commit to, that wouldn't put them into debt. And basically, I just do not want to see Washington State become Arizona, where you're spending so wildly that everything, just collapses in on itself. That's the worst case scenario. It's all great if you can thump your chest and say we're spending at the same level. But if you can't actually support that spending, then it does you no good. So I am actually for the former of stable. I think it's a win that they have stabilized the budget. But yeah, it's unfortunate that it's a reminder of what has happened to WSU, of what we've lost in the moving pieces of college football.
Here's another excerpt from this article. It states that lobbying by the Cougar Collective and other advocates for athletics to return to the budget to the $85 million level suggested hope the new budget could climb. But based on what Regents Chair Lisa told CougFan.com in February, the bigger goal was not to go lower than $74 million. So kind of as we've talked about, the current goal was to not go lower. The future goal, hopefully with the Cougar Collective and all of their efforts, is to get back to where we were and hopefully eventually surpass that.
Right. And that sort of give you an insight on where the mindset of fans are and where the mindset of the board of regents are, is like they're thinking about the floor. Let's not go lower than this floor. And the fans are like, let's think about the ceiling. And I just think that is pragmatism versus optimism right there, that the board is trying to be as pragmatic as possible, which is what you want out of leadership. And fans are saying, how do we get this number higher? I don't care how it gets higher, but for my own pride, I want to see that budget be where it was before the implosion of the Pac-12.
Here's one way that you can increase the budget: by drinking some Old Crimson Lager.
There you go.
And go to your local watering hole. And if they're not currently selling Old Crimson Lager, you can actually ask the owner of wherever you're at, whether it's a store or a tap house, and ask them to carry Old Crimson Lager. And if they aren't, then you could send an email to info@cougarcollective.org and request that they reach out to whoever is at your local spot to see if they could start carrying Old Crimson Lager. As we know, a portion of beer sales go towards the Cougar Collective. So that's one way that you could help increase the budget as much as we can, is
one beer at a time.
Lager. And Dylan, you wanted to talk about Ryan Walker.
Yeah, poor Ryan. He is struggling this season. Last night, got the opportunity to get in the game for a save op against the Padres. They were up 6-5, and immediately you could just tell he did not have any sort of feel on his slider, and it was more so of a stuff problem last night for Walker. He was only able to record one out, had a little bit of a issue from a left fielder not catching a can of corn. But the Giants did end up squeaking out last night, so he technically still walks away with a hold, getting one out. But he's got to figure out that slider. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We said that stat last week. League average of getting that slider into the zone right now is 44% for major leaguers, and he's 33. That's just not going to cut it when you have two pitches. You better have command of both of them. Also, Manzardo's been ice cold too. Last his OPS has dropped from 798 to just around 700 in the last 3 weeks. So who knows what happens there, especially with Carlos Santana playing really good baseball right now for the Guardians. But the injury to Luke Weaver in the Yankees bullpen, that might open up some opportunities for Ian Hamilton in some more late game situations for him. He's pitched quite well over the last couple of weeks. So that's just kind of the update we have on Coug baseball players.
And as
we
it
do
is
have,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, as it is with baseball, you go through ups and downs. You're trying to maximize on the peaks and not have the valleys stay too low. So hopefully these guys can bounce back.
We do have one interview to plug. I sat down with Isaac Jones of the Sacramento Kings earlier this week. He gave us an update just on his season. He was on a two-way deal with the Sacramento Kings shortly after the NBA draft concluded. He signed a two-way deal with the Kings. They turned that contract into a standard NBA contract in early March. And essentially with the two-way contract is you can play 50 games with the big club and as many as you want with the G League team. And when you get over that 50 games played, that forces the Kings or any NBA team to make the decision, all right, are we going to turn this into a standard NBA contract? By doing that, he was eligible to receive half of the rookie minimum. So he made around 152 grand this year. So good for Isaac. But the looming date ahead is June 29th. With the Kings making him in a standard NBA contract, there is a team option for Isaac Jones for 2025, 2026. That team option is worth nearly $2 million, 1.9. So a big date looming for Isaac and his future. We're wishing him the best because, even if you just get that one team option and you get that 1 year, I mean, $2 million, I think we can all live on $2 million throughout the rest of our life.
Just one of those years. That's generational type stuff there.
Yeah, so excited to get that out, and that should be up, over the next couple days.
Cool. Looking forward to that.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. Make sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Join us next Thursday, 9 a.m. Join us live. Comment your thoughts, opinions on everything that's going on right now. We'll keep you posted whenever we hear any updates. And as always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Option. Pitch. Didn't get it. They stopped him. Formation in the Apple Cup takes a knee. The clock will do the rest.